In this video, I'm going to go over your plea options in a Georgia criminal, juvenile, or traffic case. I'm Paul Ghanouni, founder and managing attorney at the teen and young adult defense firm, where we focus on helping protect the futures of people in their teens through their mid-20s when they get in trouble with the law. This video is going to be general advice. It's going to give you an overview of the options of how to plead in a case. It's not specific legal advice for your case. If you need specific legal advice for your case, please contact our office. So in a Georgia criminal, juvenile, or traffic case, you basically have three options of what you can plead at your arraignment. And those options are to plead guilty, to plead not guilty, or to plead nolo contendre. Now you'll see next to guilty I have admission, and next to not guilty I have denial. That's because in juvenile court they refer to a guilty plea as an admission, and they refer to a not guilty plea as a denial. But when I talk about either the admission or the guilty plea or the denial or the not guilty plea, I'm basically talking about the same thing there. It's just a matter of whether that's in juvenile court or not in juvenile court. So at the arraignment, you basically have three options of how to plead. The first one, being guilty, is basically an admission of guilt to the charges. And usually it's whatever you're charged with. If you just go in and say, I want to plead guilty, that's admitting to those charges without giving any opportunity to raise any defenses, to challenge the legality of anything that took place. If you don't have any type of negotiation in place with a prosecutor at that point, you're basically subject to whatever sentence or punishment the judge gives you in that situation. Also, it's worth noting that if you're dealing with a traffic ticket, if you just pay the fine, that under Georgia law is pleading guilty to that offense. The next option that you have is to plead not guilty or enter a denial if it's a juvenile case. When you plead not guilty, you're saying you are not admitting to the charges. Now, sometimes some people get hung up on this and they think, well, maybe I did this, and so if I plead not guilty, I'm lying to the court or something like that. Pleading not guilty is a procedural mechanism under the law that lets you basically say the state needs to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not lying to plead not guilty, and in many cases at arraignment, not guilty pleas are entered, and if somebody wants to enter a plea later, they can change that plea from not guilty to guilty. Usually when you enter a not guilty plea, your case gets scheduled for a trial after the not guilty plea, not usually the same day, but at a date in the future. Either a judge or a jury trial, depending on what kind of court your case is in. Now, the last option we have here is nolo contendre. Nolo contendre is Latin for no contest. And so that's a way to basically say you don't want to contest the charges. In a lot of ways, it's similar to pleading guilty in that you're accepting whatever punishment the court gives you when you plead nolo contendre, but you're not necessarily saying, I did it. Now, there are some places in the law that this can provide additional value or assistance to you. With certain traffic offenses, that can keep points off your license. With certain offenses, it can prevent a suspension of your driver's license. If you're on probation, it can be a mechanism that can be used to protect a violation of probation in a new charge, or make it more challenging for the state to prove that violation of probation. So there's usually some very specific contexts that it makes sense to use a nolo plea versus a guilty plea that an attorney could advise you on. If you have an upcoming arraignment in either a criminal case in Georgia, a traffic case, or a juvenile case, and you'd like additional assistance understanding your options, learning what options may be best for you, and coming up with a strategy, please contact us for a complimentary defense strategy meeting.